Daddy, have a good day.
That day, I sent my husband off with a smile, as usual, to go mountain climbing, a hobby of his, with our 4-year-old daughter. However, he slipped off a cliff and went missing. Bad weather hindered the search efforts, which were eventually called off, and his survival was deemed hopeless. Both my daughter and I were engulfed in sorrow, but time continued to flow, and before we knew it, 2 years had passed. Reaching my limit of waiting for my husband, I decided to move when our daughter started elementary school. And on the first day of elementary school, I saw it. There he was, my husband, looking happy in a photo with an unfamiliar woman and child. My husband, Tony, and I had known each other since our school days. He loved outdoor activities and often enjoyed mountain climbing and camping, either with large groups or by himself. My daughter Mary and I were frequently taken along to campsites, mountains, and picnics. Life with my kind husband and adorable daughter was truly happy for me. On the other hand, I was more of an indoor person. However, after marriage, influenced by my husband, I began to enjoy active hobbies. But our daughter didn't seem to feel the same way.
Mary, shall we all go mountain climbing tomorrow?
No, I don't want to go. I'd rather stay home and draw or play games.
After starting kindergarten, our daughter preferred indoor activities like playing with dolls and drawing over outdoor activities led by Tony. Preferences in play are a matter of personality, something beyond our control as parents. However, I could tell my husband was feeling lonely about not being able to share his favorite activities with Mary. She loves spending time with you, and it's not that she dislikes outdoor play. As she grows more active, she'll surely change. I encouraged him, but it had little effect. Gradually, he spent less time with the family, and even on holidays, he would go out alone or with friends to enjoy his hobbies. His work also seemed to get busier, often leaving early in the morning and returning late at night. In hindsight, perhaps those were signs of the impending tragedy.
I'm heading out. I'm going to try a deeper part today.
At 5 a.m., Tony woke up early for climbing, ate the breakfast I made, and left the house. Everything was as usual.
Daddy, have a good day.
Our daughter, who always woke up early on days Tony went climbing, saw him off at the door with me, and he responded with a smile, just as always. But then, the unimaginable happened. What? My husband. What do you mean? The news came suddenly the day after he left the house. Tony had slipped while climbing and fell off a cliff, going missing. A passing hiker found some of his belongings, including his ID, cell phone, and wallet, and turned them over to the police, who contacted me. Please, find my husband. The police and mountain rescue team made earnest efforts to search, but unfortunately, heavy rain started that day, hindering their movement. The hikers who witnessed the fall said,
"If he fell from that height, he wouldn't be unscathed."
It's sad, but he's likely already dead.
No. Please, be safe. Desperately clinging to hope, I contacted Tony's workplace, an outdoor gear company, hoping his hobby friends there might help with the search. What? He quit? How could that be? The employee I spoke to seemed puzzled and said,
Tony resigned a week ago.
Moreover, the police handling the missing person report told me,
Your husband's residence address has been moved elsewhere, and information is being concealed.
I had no knowledge of his resignation or change of residence, leaving me utterly confused. When the police suggested,
Perhaps he was troubled by something unknown to you.
my mind went blank. From there, my memory is hazy, and before I knew it, days had passed, and the search was called off. The police advised me to declare him legally missing, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. If I file the declaration, it means admitting that Tony is no longer in this world. I don't want to believe my husband is gone. Even if there's little hope, I want to wait for a miracle. I said this, but even if I averted my eyes from reality, Tony wouldn't come back. With a daughter to care for, I had to protect her life, which kept me occupied and distracted. Please come back and watch our daughter grow up with me. Days passed, staring at his photo, feeling like my heart was breaking. Despite trying to hold on, I realized I wasn't as strong as I thought. 2 years later, I couldn't bear the weight of my feelings alone. Eating felt joyless, tears would flow uncontrollably, and sleepless nights continued. Seeing my condition, my parents urged me to return to my hometown. Especially my father, who had just retired that year, strongly felt,
"You can't go on like this. I've retired. Let's move to the countryside with us and live a peaceful life. We'll help, so let's live together."
My parents, both from rural areas, had bought a modest apartment in the city and lived there. With my father's retirement, they planned to sell the apartment and move to my father's family home, which had been vacant since his parents passed away.
Can we live with Grandpa and Grandma? A new house?
Seeing my daughter's eyes light up, I realized that I wasn't the only one suffering from the loss. She had been enduring the sadness and loneliness of losing her father suddenly. Mary is trying to move forward, yet here I am, her mother, stuck in sorrow. I decided to start anew in a new place before Mary started elementary school. However, I kept our marital status unchanged. I planned to declare him legally missing and set up an altar once Mary's school situation settled. Even if he wasn't physically with us, he would live on in our hearts. And so, the first day of elementary school arrived. My daughter quickly made friends with the child sitting next to her, showing a smile from day one. I was worried she wouldn't have friends from kindergarten, but she's doing well. After the class meeting, most parents and children were still around, taking photos and exchanging contact information. I was about to take a photo with my daughter near the main entrance when I saw it. What? A bolt from the blue. I couldn't take my eyes off the family taking a photo a few feet away. In front of the school building, holding a woman and child with a happy smile, was my supposedly deceased husband, Tony.
Mom?
Oh, let's take a photo over by the flowers instead. I hurriedly led Mary away from the main entrance. They didn't seem to notice us, but despite longing to see him, I couldn't call out. A look-alike. No, that can't be. Knowing Tony since our school days, there's no way I'd mistake him in a crowd. Observing more closely, I realized the woman and child with him were people I saw inside the classroom. My daughter's classmate and his mother. Why was this woman with my husband? The answer came sooner than expected. With many events like welcome parties and PTA meetings, I could easily approach the woman.
You are Mary's mother, right? My son sits next to her. I'm Carol Smith. It's nice to see you.
The woman with Tony in the photo was Carol Smith. She worked as a salesperson at a local branch of an outdoor gear company, a rival of my husband's former workplace. Pleased to meet you. I acted naturally, suppressing my curiosity about her relationship with him. I carefully and gradually gathered information. We soon became friends, partly because we were the same age. Carol said she lost her husband in an accident 2 years ago and had been raising her son alone since. Wait, but I saw your husband on the first day of school.
Oh, he's my new husband. We just got married recently.
Oh. What's his name? I clenched my fists out of sight, getting to the point.
Tony. He was also a classmate.
A wave of nausea and goosebumps washed over me. No doubt. It's him. I mustered all my strength to stay upright and maintain composure. According to Carol, she first met my husband 3 years ago, when her child was 3 years old. Back then, her husband was still alive, and they were camping as a family. They were struggling to set up their tent when Tony, who was solo camping, helped them out.
He played a lot with my son and quickly became friends with my late husband.
After that, Carol and my husband didn't meet again until 2 years ago, shortly after her husband had passed away. She said she found my husband wandering around this area, drenched and dirty.
He seemed to have lost his memory due to an accident. From his clothing, it looked like he had been mountain climbing. But for some reason, he remembered us.
Is that so? That can happen, I suppose. So, you started dating him after that? She helped Tony get back on his feet, and as they spent more time together, they gradually fell in love.
I was vulnerable after losing my husband, and he was so kind and attentive. My son took a liking to him too.
They officially started dating a year ago, and when her child started school, they got married, with Tony taking Carol's last name. The time when they got close was exactly 2 years ago, the same time my husband went missing after his fall. It didn't occur to you to investigate his background? I mean, isn't it unsettling to be with someone whose past you know almost nothing about?
Of course, I suggested it to him. But he was terrified whenever we talked about his past. Maybe something really traumatic happened to him.
Given these circumstances, Carol didn't delve into his past.
He mentioned having a wife before, but they separated. Maybe she has something to do with it.
Summing up her story, it seemed my husband had disappeared after his fall, lost his memory, and started a new life with another family. Realizing this, I felt something snap inside me. How can I accept this? Driven by anger, I couldn't stay still any longer. I grabbed Carol's arm and started walking.
What? What's happening?
Ignoring her confusion, I headed straight to the county clerk's office. There, I obtained our marriage certificate and thrust it at Carol. Sorry for the suddenness. But please, I need to know if you're on my side or not. I saw her hands tremble as she held the paper. She likely had no idea about the truth until I gave her that document.
This can't be. Then
Her face paled, and tears welled up in her eyes. Learning something like this so abruptly and realizing she was unknowingly part of an affair, her reaction was understandable. However, after a moment, Carol wiped her tears and looked at me firmly.
I want to know the truth too. I'll do whatever it takes to help.
From that point on, we strategized on how to extract the truth from my husband. Tony claimed to have amnesia and avoided discussing his past. Whether this was true or not, we had no way of knowing at that time.
There's a company barbecue event coming up for Thanksgiving. Everyone's bringing their families, so he'll probably be happy to come along.
She suggested. A family event, huh? It might not go as planned, but let's give it a shot. I thought of a way to catch my husband off guard and waited for the day of the showdown. Finally, the day of the barbecue arrived. As expected, Tony came to the event with Carol and her son.
I want you to meet a friend.
Carol led Tony to my table.
Huh.
His eyes widened, and he froze upon seeing me. I realized immediately that he remembered everything. Do you understand the situation now? I asked quietly, but Tony, looking bewildered, replied,
Nice to meet you.
You're alive, aren't you? Suppressing my anger at his shameless act, I waited for his next words.
Sorry, but do we know each other? Due to some circumstances, my memories are vague.
He began explaining about the accident 2 years ago, claiming the trauma made him lose most of his memories from before.
All I remembered was her. I knew where I lived for my belongings, but I didn't know why I was there.
I am your wife, and we have a daughter. Her name is Mary Brown. She is a classmate of Carol's son. He looked surprised upon hearing this.
But, even if you say that, I can't remember. I've started a new life with Carol and her son. I can't disrupt that now.
I don't care about your excuses. Legally, I am still your wife. Do you need to see proof? Showing him a copy of our marriage certificate, which I had also given to Carol, Tony turned his face away.
Even so, I don't want to ruin my current happiness. I'm truly sorry, but please divorce me. I can't take responsibility for you or your daughter.
He looked down as he spoke, seemingly feeling guilty. However, whether he was genuinely suffering from amnesia or just avoiding responsibility, I couldn't tell at that point.
Can we stop this? It's not good to talk about this in front of the kids.
Finally, he glanced at Carol's son, trying to avoid the conversation. Not yet. I can't lose my temper yet. Just a little longer. As I took deep breaths to calm my anger, help arrived at the perfect moment.
Oh, Daddy. Daddy.
Huh.
My daughter, who had been away with my father to explore the stalls, returned. She ran towards her father, whom she hadn't seen in 2 years, but Tony was fixated on my father instead.
Executive!
I didn't miss that word. I stifled my urge to cheer but couldn't help but smile. My husband noticed my expression and hastily covered his mouth, but it was too late to hide anything.
It's been a while, Tony. I'm glad you remember me.
My father, William Johnson, had been an executive at the outdoor gear company where my husband used to work. He retired recently but maintained connections with many of his former colleagues and competitors. We were invited to this event by the CEO of a rival company who had connections with our family. I had planned to mention my father's name to provoke him, but having my father there in person was an unexpected but welcome surprise. How do you know my father? You just said you only remembered Carol. My question made Tony visibly agitated.
2 years ago, you asked me not to tell my daughter to protect your honor, but it was a mistake.
No! I remember now. You're important in the company, so you must have left a strong impression.
I see. So you remember your father-in-law more than your wife or daughter. Understood.
While my father smiled warmly, his eyes were cold. which even frightened me a bit.
The crime of faking an accident to hurt my daughter and granddaughter is serious.
With a final stern remark, my father said,
I'll look after the kids. You need to have a proper talk.
He then left with both children, leaving just me, Tony, and Carol. I heard you married by taking her last name, but that shouldn't be possible while still married to me. Even if you had amnesia, once you knew about our marriage certificate, you should have realized I existed.
Did you handle the marriage certificate application yourself to hide your status as a married man under the guise of preparing for the school entrance?
We know everything. Stop this ridiculous act. As I declared this, Tony began to shake.
Why didn't you just divorce me when I disappeared? I made it seem like I was in a desperate situation, so Carol wouldn't see the certificate.
Hearing his words, all my bottled-up emotions surged. I didn't know whether to feel sad or angry, but I had many things I wanted to say to Tony. Why did you lie like this? Did you really think you could deceive us forever? Stop mocking us.
Keep your voice down. I faked the accident to avoid this. What's wrong with that?
Before the accident, Tony had resigned from his job and moved. When only one person in a household moves, the family must be notified. However, if you explain special circumstances, it is possible to secretly move and hide the information.
I was having issues with my wife and that she became violent when discussing divorce. Here's the medical report and diary.
He must have used these falsified documents to hide the information and escape from me.
You and Mary are at fault. You enjoyed my hobbies at first, but then you distanced yourselves. I felt neglected by my family.
What? You're leaving us for that? He said he met Carol's family when he couldn't enjoy his hobbies with us anymore. Her family seemed to fit his ideal.
I always wanted a son, and I wanted to go camping frequently with my family. You didn't fulfill that.
Tony, do you realize what you're saying?
I do. When I heard about your husband's death, I had to see you. I wanted the ideal wife and son.
His selfish reasoning left both Carol and me speechless. Neither my daughter nor I disliked his hobbies. The reduced camping trips were just because my daughter's interests shifted indoors for a while. If that's the case, you should have told me and divorced me 2 years ago. Then you could have openly gone to her.
But you wouldn't have accepted it. What would the executive say? If you had just let me go, we wouldn't be here.
Blaming me, I felt utterly disillusioned. One thing. What did you think of me and Mary?
Huh?
Don't you understand how lonely and painful it was for us? We suffered for 2 years because of you.
I never asked you to. It was your choice.
His dismissive response made my blood boil. Fine, let's divorce. You'll pay for the adultery, unpaid marital expenses, and child support in one lump sum. No matter how angry I got, it didn't affect him.
I don't care about you and the kid anymore. I'll pay. Now I can live happily with my new family.
He said, seeming happy about it.
What's good about this? Are you kidding me?
Huh?
Tony seemed baffled by Carol's unexpected reaction.
We're done too. I'll sue you for fraud.
Wait! Why? We can be a real couple now!
He genuinely seemed confused, watching Carol's angry expression. Did he really think she would be thrilled and embrace him? Carol and Tony had a small wedding and engagement party. She paid for everything, including his living expenses after losing his job and memory. You lied and took her money. That's fraud. I muttered, making Tony turn pale.
Wait! I gave up everything to be with you. I love you. Life with a child is hard alone. I'll find a new job soon.
Don't speak. Don't talk about my son. I'm not desperate enough to rely on a man who betrayed his family.
Carol's angry shouts made me feel sorry for her.
Hey, you won't abandon me, right? You were lonely, right? Mary too.
Stop. Don't say her name. You have no right. At my scolding, he flinched and looked sadly at me. A face I once loved now only irritated me.
Let the authorities handle this.
Enjoy your hobbies alone. You're good at that. Amidst the bustling barbecue, no one seemed to notice our conversation. To others, we probably looked like happy people enjoying the event. Tony ended up paying me $100,000, including alimony, marital expenses, and child support. Carol sued him for fraud, resulting in a 2-year prison sentence. He paid me everything before his incarceration, with the remaining amount to be paid in installments after his release. I felt sorry for his distant parents, but they told me,
It's not your fault. Our foolish son caused this.
Now, Carol and I are close friends, and our children enjoy school together. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.